Welcome to the next session. Our next speakers will show you how to use smart controls in a smart way. As you know, this kind of controls has a very big impact on the user experience, so it's important to use them wisely. So our smart control experts will show you all of this. Adrian, Bobev, and Jay, bye-bye. Welcome, guys. The stage is yours.
Hello, everyone. This is Adrian from Smart Controls team. And today, together with my colleague Jay, we will talk about some of the smart controls that are developed in our teams. So let's quickly see what will be the agenda of this talk. We have prepared a sample demo project that can be accessed in GitHub attached to our presentation. So you can easily play around with it. We assume that you have already some knowledge about the smart controls, but don't worry if you don't have any idea of the smart controls. This session will be also helpful for you because it will show you some of the new cool features of the smart table and some of the common problems that you can face with the smart filter bar. I will show you these common problems of the smart filter bar and how you can avoid them. And after me, Jay will show how you can the new features of the smart table. So let's see the application that we have prepared. Hopefully you can see my screen. Here we can see that we have smart variant management, smart filter bar, and smart table. And as I said at the beginning, the smart filter bar is broken in some ways. So let's jump right into the code and maybe find what are these problems in the smart filter bar. If we get to the controller, one thing that I wanted to do is to have initial filter for one of the fields in the smart filter bar. And I try to do this in on-after rendering of the controller just by getting the smart filter bar instance, get the product code field, and create the new token. Yeah, this is possible, but it's not the right thing you should do when you want to add initial data to the smart filter bar. And we can easily see that the token is not created. For such cases, we have a special method, and the method is called setFilterData, which should be used in such cases. And now, if I remove the old code and add the new one, which is calling the setFilterData of the smart filter bar, and we have a product code field, and try to add some items to it. Let's see if this will fix the issue. If I refresh the page, we can see that the product code field still doesn't have any values. And maybe we can inspect the console to see if there are any errors which might help. And of course, here I can see that set filter data of the smart filter bar is called before the smart filter bar is initialized. I won't get deep dive into what this means because Jay will explain after me about the initialization of the smart controls, but you should know that in order to interact with the smart controls, you should wait for their metadata, annotations, and flexibility changes to be loaded before you can call any methods of the smart filter bar. We have a special event for this. It is called initialized. So let's quickly add this listener in the XML view. Here we can see that we have a smart filter bar and just add listener to the initialized event. And of course, we should update the controller code. So let's get back to the controller code and just rename the on-after rendering to the newly created event. And now if I refresh the page, we expect that the initial token will be added, but it is not. Maybe we have some typos. So let's copy the code, the whole code here. And of the view as well. But now if we refresh, the token is of course created and the table is filtered. As I said, we have some other errors in the smart filter bar, so let's try to find them. Here I see that we have two filter fields, but only one of them has a value. But the adapt filters button shows that we have two filters applied. Usually when you have such an error, maybe you're using a custom control and you're not informing the smart filter bar that this control has a value or has not a value. I have prepared a snippets that can be used to detect if we have custom controls in the smart filter bar, but please don't use this snippet in production code because it uses some of our internal methods. It is used just for debugging purposes. And now I just get the smart filter bar instance and create a method which will return me all the custom fields in the smart filter bar. And now if I run this method, and pass to it the smart filter bar, it will return array with all the custom filter fields in the smart filter bar. Here we can see that we have only one, which is most probably this one, because we can see that the name is criticality. Let's jump in the XML view and see how this control is created, and maybe we can find what is the issue here. The control configuration used for this control is this piece of code. And here we can see that we have a combo box with the custom data, and the property name is called has value, and the value is set to true. This leads me to the conclusion that maybe here is the problem, and I will try to change it to false and see if this will help in some way. And of course, the adapt filters button is updated with the correct number. But now if I try to filter on the criticality field, I would expect that the adapt filters button is again updated, and the adapt filters button will show 2, but it shows 1. And the reason for this is that when we have such a custom control, it is better to attach to its change event and update the custom data accordingly, depending on this if we have values or not. So I will delete this hard-coded value and we will attach to the selection change event of the multi-combo box. And of course, we should implement this in the controller. So now if I go to the controller, the implementation is really simple. We just get the source, which is the multi-combo box, and add the custom data to it with the property true, false, depending on this if we have some selected items or not. So now if I refresh the page, we can see that we have adapt filter showing 1, select some values, it shows 2. If I remove them, it is again updated to 1. But of course, this is not the only problems that you can face with the custom filters. So let's see if we try to filter the table with critical and negative entries. If I click go, I would expect to have the negative entries in the smart table, but let's see, this is not the case. And there is a very good reason for this. The custom filter fields are not included by default in the filter queries. And there is a good lifecycle hook or event that you can use. And this is in the smart table or in the smart chart, if you're using smart chart, which is called before rebind table. And there we should add our custom filters. I already added the listener in the XML view, so the only thing that is left is the implementation. It is a little bit long, so I will try to explain it really fast. The event returns a parameter which is called binding params, and it has a property filters, which is an array. And there we should add all our custom filters. And how we do this, we just get selected keys from the combo box for each of them and create a new filter for every selected item. Of course, we need to add filter and filter operator as our dependencies since we're using them. And let's see if this will fix this issue. Now, if I try to filter by critical and negative, the table should be filtered. And yes, indeed, this fixes the issue. So to recap, most of the common problems are with the custom controls, where some implementation is needed from the application side. I didn't show all the problems. I left this for you. you can download our repository and try to fix the last issue. I will give you some hints. It is related to the smart variant management. If you save a variant and then try to apply it, maybe it won't work. So with this, I would hand over to my colleague Jay, and he can continue with the demo.
Hi, everyone. This is Jay speaking, and I will be talking on the smart table control. So what is the smart table control? The smart table control is a wrapper control for different UI5 table types. It creates the inner table based on the OData metadata and annotations and specified configuration. So what has changed or what's new with the smart table? So basically, the smart table initially waited only for the metadata to be loaded before it initializes itself. But since version 1.88, the smart table waits not only for the OData metadata, but also for flex changes before it initializes itself. And this is valid for all smart controls now. We will also we will take a look at the heuristic column width calculation. So in the recent past, we worked on improving the default column width calculations, and also which is applicable to all table types, and also enabling column resizing capabilities for the responsive table type. We will also take a look at the show and hide details functionality for the responsive table type. So let me share my screen. So here we have the smart table, which basically shows some information about products, how many are produced, how much are sold, and how well is it doing in the market. But we can make the table data more meaningful by adding, let's say, a micro chart where the user can visualize the table data in a better way and can make more meaning out of the data. So this is a very good use case for a custom column, since the smart table does not offer the micro chart by default. So let's see how this can be done. So here we have the smart table defined, which has the responsive table type here, and we have a custom column for the microchart use case with a width of 15 rem, and we make use of the smart Harvey ball microchart, which has the same entity set as that of the smart table in this case. And the annotations that are responsible for rendering the chart are provided in our annotation document here, which will show the sold, produced, and criticality information. So let's see how this can work now. So now here we see that we have our custom column defined, and the information is much more easy to read to make better estimates on how a product is doing. So now talking about the heuristic column widths. So we see here that the table, the columns consume more space than it requires. So we can enable the heuristic column width calculation using enable auto column width, which is a Boolean. So here you see now the table is fully stretched. And now let's see how it looks like after enabling this property.
Okay, sorry to interrupt. Could you maybe zoom in on Visual Studio Code when you're in it, because it's a bit hard to read.
Sure.
Thanks.
Is it better now? Okay. So we enable the heuristic column width calculation with this property, enable auto column width, which is a Boolean, and we set it to true. So now you see that the smart table here, the columns are stretching all the way. And let's see how this is different now. So we can now see that the column widths are much smaller as compared to before. And this property makes use of the OData type, the max length, precision, possible cell templates, column header, label, and other information from the metadata document to estimate a suitable width for the column. But if the calculated width is not suitable for your use case, then it is possible to also overwrite this. And this can be done via an annotation called CSS default. The CSS default has a width annotation, and applications can provide a width for a particular property. So here the width has been provided to the product code. So here, let's quickly see this. So we see that this column has a width of 230 pixels, but let's say the user does not like the widths that are there. So now with the responsive table type, you can also, we also enable column resizing with this property, and the user is able to resize a column as desired. And by double clicking on the resize handle, we auto resize a column based on the visible cell content. And of course, the column resizing is also supported for mobile use case. Now let's add some more columns to the table. So there can be use cases where the column width, the pop-in columns that we see here can make a row really large and hamper the user experience. So to solve this problem, the Smart Table offers a property called show details button, which is also a Boolean. This property will create a button in the table toolbar with which the users can hide certain columns in the pop-in area based on the importance it is defined. By default, the Smart Table hides low importance column in the desktop scenario and medium and low in the mobile scenarios. But it is also possible to configure the importance for the column, and this can be done using detail button setting, and we provide medium and low. So let's see what's different now. So now you see this button being rendered here. Let's add some more columns to make this feature obvious. So the user can now toggle between the pop-in columns and prefer to see the high importance column, which is more easier to read in smaller screen resolutions. By the way, the column resizing is also supported for standalone responsive table types. Sorry, there is standalone SAP-M table control, and we will be also writing a blog post on this, on how this can be done. That's all from my side. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Thanks very much. So we still have time for some questions. I'll start. I think the first one is for you, Jay. Can the column resizing capabilities be enabled for the standalone SAP-M table control, i.e. without Smart Table?
Yes. So the standard the standalone use case for enabling column resizing can be enabled via dependents. So the SAP-M table can have a dependent for the column resizing plugin, which is placed in the library SAP M plugin column resizer. And just by adding this plugin as a dependent, you would achieve the same capabilities that you already saw with the smart table here.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
And of course, we will write a blog post with further details. Yeah.
Great. Next question is it possible to have a filter on the smart filter bar via an association?
I guess that this question is for me.
Yes.
I'm not sure that I correctly understand the question, but if the question is it possible to add default value for a filter via annotation? Yeah, you can add default filter value. I'm not sure at the moment what was the annotation, but it can be easily checked in our documentation.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so what else do we have? As of which UI5 version the show details capability on the smart table is available?
I will have to check this.
Yeah, the next question is related. Maybe while you're checking the feature of column width heuristic calculation, as of which UI5 version is this available?
So the documentation is already for these properties which were showcased for the smart table are already included in the presentation. So you have all the details over there, but just to answer your question, the enable auto column width is enabled since version 186. And the show details button feature is available since version 179.
Okay, great. So I'm afraid that our time is up.